Dialectical Journal, Unit 4, Part 2. When I have fears that I may cease to be. Quote of interest. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the fairy power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone, and think till love and fame to nothingness do sink. Page 957. I interpreted this quote to mean that the man could not imagine living without the woman that meant the world to him. To him she was perfect in every way, and when she was gone he would be incomplete, alone. He fears this day the most because he feels that without her he is nothing. The love they share is what makes his life worth it. This is a classic love story shortened down into a poem that expressed a man's love for the woman of his dreams. La Belle Dame sans merci. Quote of interest. I saw their starved lips in the gloam with horrid warning gaped wide, and I awoke and found me here on the cold hillside. Page 958. I felt pity for this man who believes he has found the woman that he wants to spend his life with, because unbeknownst to him she had this effect on many before him. He is not special to her, but he is still under the illusion. When he sees the other men in his dream, he becomes aware of this harsh truth. The cold hillside added to the despair that encompassed him following this realization. Midterm break. Quote of interest. Next morning I went up into the room. Snowdrops and candles soothed the bedside. I saw him for the first time in 6 weeks. Paler now, wearing a poppy bruise on his left temple. He lay in the 4-foot box as in his cot. No gaudy scars, the bumper knocked him clear. A 4-foot box, a foot for every year. Page 1082. It was not until the last line that I comprehended that the dead person was a 4-year-old boy. The description of the poppy bruise was an interesting visual because I would not have thought to make that comparison. Also, the fact that no gaudy scars were evident on his body made his death seem almost unreal to the narrator. He is described as looking as if he is laying in his cot. Ode to a Nightingale. Quote of interest. Darkling, I listen, and for many a time I have been in love with easeful death, called him soft names in many amused rhyme, to take into the air my quiet breath. Now more than ever seems it rich to die, to cease upon the midnight with no pain, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Page 971. The narrator seems to feel that death is easier than life, which may be true, but with that ease comes a lack of excitement. Excitement that is often what drives humans forward, makes them continue working when giving up may be simpler. Once there is nothing left to achieve, it is easier to give up. The sun rising. Quote of interest. Thy beams so reverent and strong, why shouldst thou think I could eclipse and cloud them with a wink, but that I would not lose her sight so long. Page 723. Similar to many of the other poems, this one deals with a man who cares so deeply for a woman that he does not want to lose sight of her for a moment. I found the diction of this passage to be peaceful and to emit strength. The words beams, eclipse, and wink created a beautiful picture. Acquainted with the night. I have passed by the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes, unwilling to explain. And further still, at an unearthly height, one luminary clock against the sky. Page 887. First of all, I was left to wonder why the man was wandering outside at night. Did he have so many thoughts running through his mind that he could not sleep? The dropping of his eyes indicates that he has done something he does not care to explain. What could that thing be? I included the piece about the luminary clock because I thought it was a creative way to envision the moon. First death in Nova Scotia. Arthur's coffin was a little frosted cake, and the red-eyed loon eyed it from his white frozen lake. Page 704. This section is eerie because the words frosted and frozen combine with the fact that the poem is about a dead body to give the reader a creepy feeling. Also, personally, the word coffin makes me feel alone and out in the cold. I cannot help but think that the dead boy would have felt this way too had he been able to feel things. Do not go gentle into that good night. Quote of interest. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lighting, they do not go gentle into that good night. Page 1034. Dark and their end symbolizes death, especially when used in the same phrase as old men. This reminded me of the other poem about death being easy. This one states the exact opposite. Instead of going easily toward death, these men are fighting to stay alive. Hummingbird. Quote of interest. There is no hum, of course, nor is the bird, that shiver of stained glass, iridescence, through which the garden appears, itself in flight, not from but towards an intensity. Page 1090. I liked the way this poem was punctuated because it emphasized different words than when it was read without pausing. The first line was a bit confusing, but overall the words chosen were fitting for a poem titled Hummingbird. The perspective that the ground is moving instead of the hummingbird was unique.